What's going on, everybody? We are back with another collaboration special edition video here on the Taurean Reloaded channel. As y'all may know, I did a video collaboration with Just My Opinion Reviews with Brandon Avery a couple days ago. The reception was impressive, as I predicted, in which we were talking about the white savior trope and why it's not seen as woke on, in media, especially more so in film. Well, today we are doing a part two. We're keeping the conversation going. I have another special guest on here with me today. This is another person who I respect when it comes to doing movie reviews, commentary shows, what have you. They actually had me on as a repeat guest on their channel when we were covering the last season of Atlanta. Mainly for I guess you can say, the latter part of October and throughout November, towards the end of the series run. He goes by the name of Movie Files here on YouTube. His real name is Elliot, as you can see right there in the corner. And I'm gonna go ahead and let him tell you a little bit about himself, just in case you're not familiar with who he is.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, this is the sequel. I guess you said we got Brandon on the other day, so I gotta step up with the sequel here. But no, man, I
Exactly.
appreciate you having me on. And as you said, yeah, I try to cover a variety of different topics on my platform, whether it's big blockbuster films, independent films, TV shows. And then the last year or two, I've really kind of got into the whole going live with live discussions. Like you mentioned, man, I miss Atlanta, bro. I miss Atlanta. But
Yes.
discussions of talking about our favorite shows and movies. And it's just a lot of fun, man. And again, I've got the opportunity to work with you the last month or so. And I've always known of your channel and appreciate the content you put out there. But being able to collaborate with you and get to talk to you, man, has been a great opportunity. I'm happy to be here to talk about this topic today, man.
Yeah, most definitely. As a matter of fact, when I had reached out to you, I think in the chat on one of the streams that you were doing, you were saying
Yeah.
that we need to collab on
Yep.
something,
Yep.
at one point. And it's crazy how it started off with us just talking about Atlanta. But I said I
Mhm.
need to find a topic that we can discuss where you are now collaborating on our channel. And for those of you who are unaware, this was supposed to be a 3-person discussion in one video. But
Yeah.
and unfortunately, with scheduling and everything, it didn't work out that way. But you know what? I said I'm gonna squeeze, Elliot in here somewhere and have him give his take on this same topic, because we could have easily chose a different topic. But I said no, I want to stay on this one
Yep.
and get his perspective on it as well. And the perfect thing about this is I asked him before we actually started this video, did he get a chance to watch the other one? And he said no. I said that's perfect, because now it's really fresh
Right.
about what he is going to say when it comes to this topic. So I'm gonna pretty much frame it the same way I did when I discussed it with Brandon.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna start off asking you, how would you define what the white savior trope is when it comes to film, more so film, because you see it in television a little bit, but
Right.
it's very prevalent in
Right.
film.
Yeah. Well, being someone that as an only child, man, film, TV was like what kept me entertained. So as a kid,
Mhm.
a lot of these things, these tropes as we call it, are not as recognizable as a kid. It's just kind of like, oh, it is what it is, right? But it's not until you
Mhm.
integrate yourself into society, you come across your own instances of discrimination or racism, and then you kind of start to peel the onion back and look at the layers, and you start to look at things much differently. And as far as answer your question, as far as the definition to me, the white savior is essentially a white individual, 99.9, 100% of the time is a white male in a film or a TV show in which we have, whether it's Black, Mexican, people of color, essentially going through some type of trials or tribulations, and out of nowhere, it comes the white character coming in and saving the day. And it could be so minute, a little, something that can just be a character that's rarely in a film and then come out of nowhere and
Mm,
save it, or someone that starts off as a villain, and by the end of the
yeah.
film they've been reformed, and now they're coming in and change their ways and saving a lot of our characters. And it can be on again, a small project, or even something as big as Marvel or Star Wars. So
Mhm.
it's a trope that I don't think Hollywood will be letting go anytime soon.
Oh, most definitely not, because that's something that they feel like they're gonna make their bread and butter on in
Yeah.
some form of fashion. As a
Right.
matter of fact, one of the bigger white savior tropes that I remember hearing about was an old film called Birth of a Nation. Well,
Mhm. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
by D.W. Griffith,
Yep.
I was one that was seen as one of the first motion pictures, and it was shown at the White House. Then I believe Woodrow Wilson was the president. I think at the time, I think if my history serves me correctly, and that one right there was right. It had white actors, white male
Yep.
actors dressed up in blackface, pretending to
Mhm.
be the savage, big black brute that
Yeah.
was attacking the helpless damsel in distress white woman.
Mhm.
And she had to be saved by the white savior, who of course was the Klan, and that was their way of pushing themselves into prominence to be
Yep.
seen as these heroic type figures, which
Heroes.
of course in reality they were far from it. I
Right.
mean, like extremely far from it. Like they were the are historically the true villains, especially when it comes to black people, especially during our ancestors' times. Like
Right. Right.
imagine what they had to do dealing, with at that time. So it's
Yep.
just amazing how the white savior trope was used in media and
Mhm.
film to help them out in reality and help
Yep.
them shape their
Freeing them in a
reality,
different way.
that which
Yeah.
ended up shaping world reality in the world
Right.
view of
Right.
who is good and who is bad.
Mhm. And that's what a lot of people I think kinda don't understand the power of media, right? Sometimes it's
Hmm.
kinda people brush it off and it's, "Oh, it's just a movie. It's just a TV show. It doesn't really do
Hmm.
any harm." But like you said, man, it bleeds into reality. It bleeds into our everyday lives, and it just subconsciously we don't even realize it because we're just so trained to just accept it for what it is or accept it as
Yeah,
a norm. So it's crazy how much in media and even dating back to like you said, it's been going on for, not just a 10-year window, 20-year window. I mean, we're talking about early 1900s and on and again, no sight near of its ending anytime soon. So it's
exactly.
crazy, man, how media is so powerful and some people don't even realize it.
Exactly. And it rarely ever gets called out. It's almost like
Right.
it's something that just kind of happens and we're just supposed to accept it as happening. And then
Hmm.
you look at it as like, no, it's like give, black people in particular, black characters the opportunity to protect themselves or to save themselves without the influence of an
Right.
outsider coming in to try and come and save the day.
Right.
One thing that I had mentioned when I was talking to Brandon about this was that I find that a lot of the white savior tropes don't always necessarily come through superhero films. I find a
Right.
lot of them come
Yeah.
through with your drama films,
Yep.
such as,
Yep.
and I put a collage together of a few examples of where the white savior trope definitely came through heavily,
Hmm.
such as The Blind Side,
Yep.
the Help, um,
Yep.
Dangerous Minds,
Hmm.
Freedom Riders, and like that was a trope, especially when it comes to like Dangerous Mind and Freedom Riders. That was a huge trope back then, where you would have the like schools in the urban areas, like in the
Yeah.
hood,
Yep.
run down. It's a lot of violence, drugs, however you want
Hmm.
to put it. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, they put a call in to come and get the white teacher to come down there and try to
And
correct some
take
stuff.
some things up.
And usually it's and have you noticed that a lot of times it's usually a white female
Yeah.
teacher that does it? And I said that translates over to real life, because when you think about it, white female teachers are a they it's an influx of them in the educational system.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a lot of them.
That dates back to even, going back, we're talking about like the slavery days. That's where the women, they were not doing the hard work per se. They were doing the education and taking from what they saw, doing their duties into the classroom course. So yeah, it's been, white women, like I said, into the educational system is a trope within itself.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. So, like I said, it's always a link between what we see in the movies and
Hmm.
also what we see, translated over into real life.
Right.
What
Right.
would you say is one or maybe even a couple of films that you've ever seen where that trope
Right.
was present?
Man, the list, where does it start? I mean, you mentioned some of the ones that I grew up on. Again, you didn't realize until you were older, but even and taking it out of the superhero realm, I think of rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman, but even 42, great film,
Mhm.
by the way. But Harrison Ford came in as the scout that gave Jackie Robinson the opportunity to make a splash into the MLB. I think of dramas. 12 Years a Slave comes to mind, right? Chiwetel Ejiofor's character going through all the trials and tribulations throughout that film, and then Brad Pitt's character kind of comes in fourth quarter to save the day, to get him his freedom. And then even bringing it to got my Black Panther behind me there, even bringing it to the comic book realm. You think of everything that went in the first Black Panther, and out of all the people in Wakanda nation, we had to help and to have the reliance on Everett Ross to fly the plane to help, keep the Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger's ships to go out to start his war. So it's so many films, and even animated films, of course, Pocahontas. I know this week is a big release with Avatar, which I'm a fan of that franchise, but even then, they're not Black people, but they're still people of color as far as the that tribe that's in that film, and Jake Sully coming through to save the day. So it's the list goes on. You mentioned TV shows, it happens there. So it's everywhere. It is everywhere, man.
Yeah, it's funny, like you mentioned Avatar. I'm looking at, like, even back when the first Avatar came out back in 09, and I'm
Yeah.
looking at how the hair is. I was like,
Oh
that's
man.
how Black
Wait, wait,
people would
wait till
wear
you
their
see
hair.
wait till you see the sequel, man. There's some
Yeah, I'm gonna
interesting
be yeah, like I
hairstyles
said,
in
I'm gonna
there.
be checking it out. I'm gonna be checking it out this week. And like I
Yeah.
said, even when I was looking at the previews, like in the trailers, I was like, that's exactly how a lot of Black people would wear their hair, both the
Right.
men and the women. So it's like,
Mhm.
um, what that's all about. Now, when it comes to the trope of being the white savior,
Mm.
oftentimes when it comes to film, we always hear, sometimes, especially nowadays in particular, like, it's almost one of the things that it's almost like people are looking for it just so they can call it that, or call what it is, or
Right.
what they think it is. And that is when it comes to that word woke. I
Mm.
said that word has completely lost its luster,
Yeah. Lost in
especially when you think
translation.
about, yeah, exactly. It's lost its true meaning and its definition of what the word actually means in its inception. And when you
Mm.
look up what the original word, meaning of the word is, it just means to be culturally aware.
Right.
Aware of your
Right.
surroundings, aware of the way the world works. Especially, since that's a terminology that got started with Black people, and it's an old term. It's not a new term.
Right.
The meaning of it has changed
Has changed. Right.
recently, like more
Right.
so around the I would say like the early 2010s, and now it's just like taking on a whole new meaning that is just really just out there.
Mm.
Just
Mm.
and I had chopped it up to this new definition of woke, meaning anything that is not a heterosexual white male.
Right.
That's
Right.
pretty much what I have boiled it down to. What do you think had, like, in your opinion,
Mm.
had the word woke turned into?
Well, it's definitely become a triggering word to, as you said, to when a film doesn't have or does have, whether it's a person of color leading a project, or prominently leading the story, or if it's female led, or if it's it seems to have like an agenda behind it. And it seems to just be something that's like, when it goes against the grain per se, for some people, it's just automatically perceived as being woke, or perceived to be having some type of message to get people to get on a certain side, or to sway their opinion on a certain situation. And it's just like you said, it's become a word that has been completely redefined by
Hmm.
today's society, influence on social media being one of them. And it's just a word that just people latch onto, and as soon as they see that word, they just automatically frame the project in their head as being an agenda, being woke, being something that's going to have a message behind it. And it's just crazy to see. And I don't know how we can redefine the word, if it's just
Hmm.
too far gone to just
Hmm.
recapture it and recapture what it actually means. But it's something that we see a lot in today's society, that just things that have a history, has a past, has been used for centuries, and all of a sudden all it takes is a tweet or a particular person of influence to completely change the definition of something that's been around forever. So woke has completely lost its definition and its
Hmm.
meaning due to today's society, man. It's just
Yeah.
wild.
I think one of the biggest things that came out this year, as far as trailers for a movie,
Hmm.
where there was some of the most intense backlash, and I don't think I have ever seen backlash like this ever before was when they dropped the teaser for the Little Mermaid live action remake.
Oh man,
I'm
man.
sure I know you and everybody saw it. I did a couple videos talking about that, and when I
Mm.
tell you that these grown children, yes, I said grown children, those over the age, some of them around my age and older, literally lost their minds, if they even had a mind to lose, over seeing Halle Bailey
Mm.
portraying Ariel in The Little Mermaid, even though we already knew she was playing that part since 2018 when she got
Right,
casted.
right.
And the thing is, I knew then when she was getting casted in that part, I already knew what was about to happen. I knew, I said,
Hmm.
oh, here it comes.
Hmm.
I said
Hmm.
that avalanche is coming. And it kind of like toned down a little bit then, because at that time it was just her being casted, and they
Right.
were
There
about
was
to film the
no
movie.
images, no behind the scene,
Right,
no framing of
nothing,
the character. Yeah.
nothing. Yeah,
Yep.
they were just at that point they were, she was casted, and they were getting ready to start filming.
Right.
When they dropped that teaser, I said before I even watched it, I already know
Hmm.
what is going to happen. I mean, these people went out of their way to go and find a way to turn on the dislike meter for
Right.
that
Right.
video, just to show that, hey, nobody's gonna like this, because look at the dislike meter for this, and compared to the likes that they had, that's probably one of their most disliked
I
trailers
think
on
so.
on
I
the
think I
on the
read it's like,
Disney YouTube
yeah,
channel.
I think
And
I
like
read something
they
like
I
that. Yep.
said, like they were immensely upset, to the point where I'm almost certain her DMs got flooded with a
Hmm.
lot of nasty comments.
Hate
I wouldn't be surprised if
stuff.
they sent
Yeah.
her death threats. I'm
Yep.
like, they casted her for this part because she can sing. Number one, that's a
Right.
prerequisite, because Ariel
Right.
has to know how to sing.
That's got those
And
vocals. Gotta
and
have
she
them. Yep.
and I said Halle Bailey has a very classical
Yeah.
singing voice that you don't hear a
A lot of
lot of
range. A
female
lot of range.
singers
Hmm.
sing like today. It's
Right.
You rarely find people sing like that today. Her and her sister,
Soulful. She got a lot
honestly,
of soul.
she
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
very soulful voice.
Hmm.
And I said
Hmm.
that that was what they were looking for, because literally when they asked her to sing Part of Your World, and they
Hmm.
said the director was just blown away by
Hmm.
her voice, that he didn't want to hear anyone else.
Right.
He said
That's
that's
it.
Ariel.
Yep.
And nowhere in his statement did he say, I'm casting her because she's black,
Right.
and
Right.
I'm trying to be progressive and not have her be white. He
Hmm.
said I casted her because she's a good singer. And
Right.
that's what Ariel needs to be, is a great singer, because that's what she's known for, is her voice.
Hmm.
Like, a lot of the movie in the story is surrounded around her voice.
Right.
So
Supply. Yeah.
that's
Supply the
why
story. Yep.
that's why the director casted her. But you had
Hmm.
all these people online trying to flip into, oh, she got casted because she's black,
Right.
and
Right.
and how is this going to work, because she has dreadlocks. Ariel didn't have dreadlocks. What are they going to do? Like, they even went to even into that realm of
Yeah.
talking about her hair and
Yep.
everything, like, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, people like completely lost their minds around that whole situation. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like when they drop the next trailer. And honestly, they probably could have been dropped it, but they probably
They
waiting to
probably,
drop it
yeah.
because of the backlash from the first one.
Mhm,
Honestly,
mhm.
if I was them, I probably wouldn't even drop another trailer until a good month before the
I
movie
mean,
comes
hell,
out.
it's the IP sells it, right? So, I mean, you don't really
Yeah,
need that much marketing, but at the same time, um, that's part of a film. You gotta market the film. So,
yeah, you
yeah, I
got to
totally
market.
agree with
It's
you
a
that
budget.
it's probably being they're probably waiting for the right moments to kinda find and pick and choose when they're gonna release it, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to the film, that's when the real people are gonna come out.
Yeah, that's when it's
Comics are
gonna
really
like
gonna get
really
nasty.
that's when they're really going to determine. And then some of them
Yeah.
people was even going as far as said, what if they casted Ryan Gosling as Black Panther? I said that's a bad faith argument.
And that's the
That's
thing. That's why I think people losing talk about getting lost in translation when the race or the culture of the character is integral to the
yeah.
story of the character. Then yes, they have to be a certain race. But I mean, Ariel. I mean, we're talking about mermaids, people. We're talking about
Mhm.
fictionalized fantasy type of characters that have not walked on Earth in reality. So it's just crazy how
Exactly.
people kind of blur those lines and hold those type of fantasy things so near and dear to their heart that when they see something that's a difference or different, it just completely rocks their world and rocks their core.
Yeah, and I was also reading, some people saying, "Oh, well, why couldn't they, cast her as, I guess, one of the sisters, or
Mhm.
made her like a whole, another
Just
character?"
another
And
character in general.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I saw, like, listen, I saw every single talking point when it pertained to that. I think like they had so many echo chambers, like that whole
Mhm.
block, like literally went on for like a good 2 weeks straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it became so nauseating
Oh, man.
after a while. So it was like, I get, it is what it is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess at the end of the day, like we'll just have to, like you said, we'll have to see what the numbers are going to look like
Right. Right.
when,
And when does that even come? Again, you mentioned the marketing. I don't even know. Was it May? May of next year?
yeah, yeah, I think it comes out like towards the end of May. I think it comes
Okay.
out maybe, I want to say, around Memorial Day weekend. I think
Okay.
that's when they're
Okay.
releasing it. So they're pushing for that holiday weekend release. So,
Right.
so
Right.
I
Right.
guess
Right.
they can get as much money as they want, and it'll work
Mhm.
perfectly because the kids will be out of school. I mean,
Oh,
that's going to
it's gonna
be
make a
a hit.
killing. I don't care
So
what
the
anybody
yeah,
says. It's still gonna make
there's
a
gonna be
killing.
a hit when it comes, especially when it comes to the girls, like the little
Mhm.
girls,
Mhm.
especially young black girls. They're gonna
Oh,
eat
yeah.
it up. They're gonna,
Yeah.
they're gonna love it. So
100%.
I have no doubt in my mind that the movie is gonna do well.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah. But I was actually had talked about this in the comment section of the video I did with Brandon. And I wish I had brought it up with him, but since I didn't, I'll bring it up here.
Mhm.
You remember? Well, we weren't around when this era happened, but you remember the black exploitation era.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I was saying, how could you imagine if could you imagine if the black
Today?
exploitation era was happening today? How many
Come
people would
on, man.
how many like I mean, how many leaps of faith would be happening if
Listen.
the black exploitation
Listen,
was
man.
to happen right now?
Listen, Twitter wouldn't even you wouldn't your phone people would have to put their phones in the freezer because they would be blowing up because people would
Yeah.
just be going wild with a lot of the characters that we saw back then and still today because they're available to stream and buy and purchase and I've
Mhm.
seen my fair share of them. Yeah, it would. I mean, and we get in today's society. There's a couple of films that try to emulate those type of films, and even
Mhm.
then, those type of films still kind of get either buried or forgotten about, or just
Mhm.
completely lost on how on today's society because they're just not used to that type of storytelling. So, yeah, if we had those today, man, I'm telling you, it would be a talking point, and people would be rioting in the streets because they have the way those films play out,
It's
man.
too many black
Yeah,
people.
yeah, too many, too much, too much,
It's way too many black people, and the thing is, like,
man.
the thing is, a lot of people don't know that the black exploitation era saved Hollywood. Like, Hollywood was losing a lot of money. Like, they weren't
Yeah,
making money
yeah.
like hand over fist like they were at one point. People
Hmm.
weren't really going to the movies like that. So
Right.
then you had these, movies come out, and they were having black people being seen as literal heroes,
Heroes, yeah, man.
like literally fighting crime and doing stuff
Yes,
like
sir.
that. And it helped recoup the market, like the money
Right.
that they lost, for them to stay afloat. And then it's like, once they got out of them what they needed, they
Mhm.
tossed them away, and
Toss them away.
you
Yeah.
never saw those type of movies again.
Mhm. It's so crazy,
I
man.
said that's typical Hollywood.
Hollywood.
And
Yep.
that's the same thing that Marvel did when they were about to go under. And what did they have to do? Make Blade.
Mm.
And then Blade was a colossal success,
Yep.
and it saved Marvel from going bankrupt,
Mhm.
because they had tried to do other movies like, God, man, dare I say it, Howard the Duck.
They
And then
didn't
they
know what to
tried to,
do, man.
yeah, and then
They
they
were
had,
scrambling
like,
for
then
success.
they had Fantastic Four that wasn't a success. And then they said, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board,
Yeah.
because what we're doing right now clearly
It
isn't
ain't working.
working. So uh what's up with this Blade character? Like,
Yeah.
we don't, and I was talking to someone earlier. I said I didn't even know when I saw Blade that he was a comic book character. I thought it was just someone
Mm.
that they just made up, and
Right,
Wesley
right, right.
Snipes played him, and he looked cool and everything like that.
Mhm.
He was part human, part vampire. He can walk around during the day. He had all this tech. He
Uh,
had this sword
mhm.
and everything like that. But then when I
Swag.
found out he was a Marvel character, I was like, wow, that's very interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like I said, Blade saved, Marvel from, going under. And if
Right.
it wasn't for Blade, we wouldn't have
Who
that
knows what
Spider-Man
would
movie,
happen?
that
Yep.
what you
X-Men and all that stuff. Yep.
X-Men, yeah, and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see, the the black led films, or those who would be deemed it as woke, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
is out here saving industries.
They don't know. They don't know, man. The black dollar goes a long way.
Mhm.
Now remind people what Black Panther did, 4 years ago. Shook the
Mm,
world. Cultural
yeah.
impact.
Yeah, and they tried to, and I remember they tried to underplay it when the Black Panther movie came out, and tried to say that in its first weekend they projected to make $90 million. I said,
Mm.
who projected that? Because it definitely made way more than that. I think it made like 200 million in its first weekend, and it stayed number one for like an entire month. It stayed in the box office for so long that they practically had to beg them to pull it out of there by a certain time, because they said, we need to get this out on Blu-ray. Because
Right.
now
And
you're
Infinity
running
War
in,
is
because
clouded
now
to Infinity War.
you're running into another market,
Mhm.
because they
Right.
stayed in there for so long. Yeah, and if in Infinity, I think Infinity War was getting ready to come out. So
Yeah, they was like, we gotta
yeah,
pull
so
it
it's
back a
like
little
we
bit.
need to hurry up and get you up out of here. So
Right.
yeah,
It's crazy,
but
man.
yeah, and also there was a time when they were trying to say that uh a lot of black led films don't make money.
Mhm.
That was
Mhm.
also another common stereotype,
Yeah.
that black films do not make money. And I said, where did that come from?
Right. Yeah,
And yeah,
it's
go ahead.
it's crazy, the story, the headlines that try to get created on if a black film is unsuccessful, then it's like, oh, we gotta push it back 10 years. We gotta look back at the scoreboard. We gotta go back to the playbook and reorganize some things. And we'll go ahead, and as we're realizing now, what's the new Blade is taking. I don't know why it's taking so long to get that film off the ground, but it takes unfortunately one bad film or an unsuccessful box office, and we get pushed back 5-6 years before we can actually get another lead film. So it's the narratives and the motives behind those things are just kind of ridiculous, man. The optics behind that is wild.
Yeah, that's exactly. But I have since we're on the topic of superheroes,
Hmm.
and superhero films,
Yeah.
why do you think that, and I think I want to point and direct this more so towards at DC.
Mm.
Why do you think they have not yet had a black led
Ooh.
superhero film yet? Not, I mean, some people will say Spawn, but I don't really count
Yeah, I know
Spawn.
what you mean. I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
That's a great question, man. I mean, hey, listen, I've been screaming at the rooftops to get the John Stewart off the ground
Hmm.
for DC and really kind of shape out that world. It's a really great question, man. Because I mean, well, first off, that's a whole other conversation with DC and how they've been managing their characters, and the whole shakeup this past week or so has been insane within itself. So
Yeah.
I just think DC, and this is just a further conversation of like sometimes when you have too much, you don't know what to do with it. Just
Hmm.
looking at how Marvel, as you just mentioned, when they were bankrupt, they had to put out what they had, which was their B and C list characters. And it sounds crazy to say that now, but yes, Iron Man was not a big popular character growing up in the comics, nor was
Hmm.
Captain America. The most popular character and that kind of rebooting of the MCU or getting that whole ground off was the Hulk. Everyone else was like, who's this
Yeah,
character?
exactly.
So DC, they've always had all their characters. They just have shown us they have no idea what to do. That's the reason why
Yeah.
we have, in the last decade, 4 or 5 Batmans. We've had,
Mhm.
even Superman has had his fair share of films, even though I feel like they haven't used him properly. And we just in 2017 got Wonder Woman. So the fact that it's taken them so long just to get a definitive Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the
Mhm.
trilogy, the Trinity, and their most popular characters, I wouldn't think that they would probably have a black lead in the forefront because they can't even figure out their own white popular
Right.
characters. So it's
Exactly.
wild, man. Hopefully, again with James Gunn and Peter Safran, they realize what needs to be seen, and that's everyone. We as people need to see ourselves on the big screen. So I'm
Mhm.
hoping sooner
And
rather than
in the
later we get ourselves on the big screen in the
and
DC world.
in the most respectful way possible. Like,
Yes,
don't
yes,
just throw us out there, and have us doing a whole bunch of wild stuff, or out there being the stereotype, because
yeah,
they can easily say, "Oh, we're going to put you out there." And then you look at it, it's like, "What is this?"
exactly,
Yeah, like,
exactly,
what is this? Because a lot of people have been wanting for so long is a static movie.
Yeah, which
Like that
I read
like
something the
that
other
has
day. I
been
don't know if it's happening, but yeah.
like that's been something that has been talked about probably since the show was on, and that
Right,
was back in
right.
the early 2000s. Like I was a huge Static Shock fan. I watched
Mhm.
it every Saturday on Kids WB. Like when
Yep.
it came on, like when that theme song came on, I already knew what time it was. So yeah, yeah, like people have been wanting a static movie for so
Yeah.
long. I don't know what's happening with that.
No. Yeah. Right now, I mean, with the whole shakeup with DC, I think I said, like, I read it, some article, or I saw it on my feed, that film is kind of in limbo, as is a lot of the projects that was announced a couple years
Yeah.
ago. So hopefully, man, again, with James Gunn and Peter, that, and I know they got a 10-year plan, but hopefully within that plan, very early on, is, obviously get the big players on the board, but also integrate some of those characters that we haven't seen ever on the big screen, man, which is just
Hmm.
wild to say. But I'm hoping
Yeah.
that we can get a static. And honestly, I think they're probably going to be looking at Blue Beetle as
Yeah.
a kind of a template to see, how, for a character like that, to be able to play into the big screen. So hopefully, and I think
Hmm.
Blue Beetle will do great. But
And see, the thing is, I know
yeah.
nothing. I know nothing about Blue Beetle. Like that's one of those characters. Like I never really paid
Got into, yeah.
attention to. Like
Same here,
I
same here.
heard
Yeah.
like yeah, like I heard like I've heard the name come up, but I've
Mhm.
never like actually looked into his story, or
Yeah.
I don't even know what his abilities are. I just know what his suit looks like,
Yeah.
and that's it. And I think James
Mhm.
Gunn only posted up the teaser poster
Right.
of Blue Beetle
Right.
and saying that it's coming out next year, and that's it.
Mhm.
That's all we
Mhm.
really know about when it comes to that character,
Yeah.
and even that movie for that matter.
Yeah. Well, hopefully next August that will change, and hopefully everyone
Oh,
will
it's coming
know
out
who
in
Blue Beetle.
August. I don't know why I
Yep.
thought it was coming out the end of the well, no, Aquaman 2 is coming out the end of the year. I told people this. I said, as good as the first Aquaman was, if
Mhm.
Amber Heard is in it,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah, she's in it,
Uh,
unfortunately. She's in it.
well, I guess I won't be watching it then because I told people if she's in it, I'm not
Yeah.
going to watch
She's
it.
still in
And
the
I'm
original
standing
cut.
and I'm standing firm on it, and that's a shame because I really did like the first Aquaman. Like it
Yeah.
really
It's a
like
lot of
it
fun.
surprised me how good the visuals was
Oh, yeah.
in that movie.
James
And
Wan
that's
wasn't
one of
playing no
DC's
games.
most successful, films.
Yep, which is,
Who
again,
would have
another
thought that would
conversation.
have made a
Right,
billion
the fish.
dollars?
The film about the fish
Like,
outgrossed the film with Batman and Superman solo outing, and even the most recent Batman,
Mhm.
that the fish
I think one of the
eat
more
them out.
disappointing things that DC did was giving us Hal Jordan's version of Green Lantern and not John Stewart. I was
Yeah.
telling Brandon, I said, why did they give us Hal Jordan? And I'm looking at him like, who is Hal Jordan? And I'm
Mhm.
like, I said, I thought only because the only one I was familiar with was John
With
Stewart.
Jon Stewart.
So
Mhm,
it's like he
mhm.
was because he's the more popular ones. A lot of people
Yeah,
know who that is.
right.
So like hopefully somewhere down the line we do get a John Stewart,
You would hope,
you know,
man. You would hope.
right. And I don't know if you've noticed, especially now when it comes to like superhero films,
Mhm.
especially with the next two MCU movies coming out being Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and Guardians of
Right.
the Galaxy Volume 3.
Mhm.
Did you notice that the two villains in
Are
those
black.
movies are both black
Oh,
men?
100%, 100%. 2 great actors too,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I don't know like I don't know if that makes you like feel some type of way, or it doesn't really matter to you, or do you see a trend possibly happening?
One of which I do know that they are, this is race bending in regards to, traditionally these are they're aliens, well, Kang isn't really an alien, but and he's blue.
Mhm.
And I believe, and I'm not too familiar with the high evolutionary, but I believe that particular character in the comics doesn't really have a race that they've been into. I think, again,
Mhm.
I think it's an alien. Which, to me, I actually don't have a problem with it, because number one, Kang is not just like a throwaway
Yeah.
one-off villain in
Mhm.
Ant-Man. It's
Mhm.
it's the Thanos of this new phase. So I do appreciate that they allowed an up and coming, not just some, but a great actor in Jonathan Majors to have a role that allows him to play, from what I understand, Kang is not just going to be a one note, one dimensional bad guy once in the world. He's going to have variants of himself, as we've
Mm-hmm.
seen with
In
Loki,
Loki.
with
Mm-hmm.
He Who Remains, and apparently in Ant-Man, we're going to see maybe one or two more different versions of him. And then when he gets his Kang Dynasty film, we're going to see multiple versions of him, not only being a bad guy, but maybe even potentially helping the Avengers into Secret Wars. So I think a role like that allows him to have the opportunity and to be able to see us on screen, and again, variant in many different ways, good, bad, and everything in between. So actually, I like that,
Mm-hmm.
that allowing us to play these bigger than life type of villains and have multiple stories, and having a huge impact on what is the biggest franchise right now, which is the MCU. So I don't have a issue with it at all. But if it is, we start to see a trend per se of like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, well, I guess this is working. Let's make black people villains in all
The
the movies.
villain,
Then that's a
right?
problem. But
Yeah.
I hope I don't see this being a trend. I think this is just one of those things like we pick the best actor for the job.
Mm-hmm.
From what and again, Jonathan Majors, the resume speaks for itself, and I can never remember the actor's name that's playing High Evolutionary, who was in Peacemaker, and I've seen him in some other projects. Apparently, James Gunn said he's the best actor he's ever worked with. So to me, that sounds like, again, going back to our woke conversation, it sounds like they picked the best actors for the job versus
Mm-hmm.
picking them as black men.
Yeah, but you can't tell that crowd that
Right,
they see that
right,
someone got chosen and they're black and they're not quote unquote traditionally what the character is in the comics. Then they say,
right.
oh, they're probably trying to be woke and all types of stuff
Yeah. Yeah,
like
let's
that.
why
And
didn't they cast a blue human being to be Kang? Why didn't they cast a real life alien to be the High Revolution? Yeah, they'll come up with
right,
it.
and I didn't really know too much about the High Evolutionary stuff. He was the one that created Rocket.
Right,
Like
right, and that's like his whole
that's
shtick,
really
yeah.
all I knew about him, but I'll probably look more into it so I can be more in tune with his character
Yeah.
going into the movie, so I'll know when I see him and see him do certain things like, oh, I saw that or I
Right,
read
and
that
and also
when
too,
I was
and
researching.
and you know this with Marvel at this point because they're such a big conglomerate and it's such a huge franchise. They switch and they alter the character where they take some of the fundamental things about the character in the comics and they put their own spin to it. Especially James Gunn, he likes to kind of
Yeah,
remix his
they did
things
that
and
with Ms.
make it
Marvel.
more exactly,
They
exactly.
did that with Ms. Marvel because her powers
Hmm.
in the show is far from what she was
Yeah.
doing in the comics. So
Hmm.
yeah, and we know why they did that
Yeah.
because with what her character's about to be doing in that Marvel's movie that's coming out next year as well. Her doing just what she's known to do is not going to be feasible compared to her other two counterparts who are more
Right.
cosmic,
Right.
beings. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, most definitely, but yeah, I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with those two particular characters, especially the Kang character, because like you said, he's gonna be
Gang, 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 gang.
he's gonna be here for a while. He's gonna be here for the next couple of phases. So
Yep.
we're gonna be saying is to get used to Jonathan Major's,
Get used to him.
face.
Yep.
I remember when he popped up on
Hmm.
Loki at the end of Loki season 1.
Stole that whole scene, man.
Yeah, when
Ate
that
it up.
elevator opened like that, because it was always rumors, like they said he might pop
Mhm,
up at the end
mhm,
of the series,
mhm.
but we didn't really read too much, and we just wait for it to happen. And
Right.
then when that elevator door opened, I remember going online and looking at the different reactions, and everybody had the same type of reaction. Like everybody was just going crazy because
Fire.
they
Fire.
knew exactly what's getting ready to come. Now, at first,
Mhm.
some people was like, "Oh, like he doesn't act too menacing," and he was like, "Oh, this is just one of his
This is
variants
just
right there." He
one
was
of
like,
many.
he said, "I'm the good guy." He said, "I'm the
Right,
nice one." He said, "Wait
right.
till you see the other ones." And
Mhm,
when he said that,
mhm.
that right there was the perfect line to kind of end the season 1 on,
Right.
because it kind of gets you excited to see what's to come, but it
Mhm.
also gets you kind of scared for what's to come too,
Exactly. And
because
I mean, even in
this
that
it
little Ant-Man trailer, I mean, we don't get a full scene with him, but you could just tell
mhm,
that he's turned that menacing nature up to a 10 versus what
yeah.
we saw with him, in,
Even the
Loki.
tone with this Ant-Man trailer was way different than the first two. The first two was really light, like
Yeah,
light
very
and
very
hearted. This
timid, yeah.
one is more serious, and it's very rare to
Dire.
see Ant-Man in that element, because that's
Yeah.
really not traditionally where you will see Ant-Man at. You
Right.
know, he's always making, jokes. He's
Yeah,
like
it's a joke.
the lighthearted character. He
He's
still helps
Ant.
get the
He's a little
job
guy.
done. But
Yeah.
this time it's like it's an actual threat that he's dealing with. And I'm not even going to lie, with the setup that they're doing with this one, it almost sounds like we might be losing somebody. It's crazy because the
Ah,
next two
man,
films that's
yeah.
coming, because it's crazy because the next two films that's coming up, the tone that they have set, it sounds like we're losing at least one person
Oh,
in
yeah.
both of those movies, because
Mhm.
apparently this is the last Guardians movie right here, at least the last one
At
James
least
Gunn
the
is doing.
yeah, at least the iteration of
Last
these
one,
characters. Yeah, yeah.
this iteration of it. So it's like you
Yeah.
can, when this is the last one, you can pretty much do what you want. As far
Right.
as
Right.
Ant-Man goes, it's like someone possibly could go, but
Mhm.
you don't know who. You know who's going to stay or still
Right.
be here. We know Cassie's still going to be here because she's
Right.
going to go on and be with the Young Avengers. But
Right.
as
Right.
far as her dad, Ant-Man, is like, I mean,
I
we'll see what's going to
honestly, I
happen.
can see Hope maybe not making it out of, especially with Evangeline Lilly coming to some of the controversy she's kind of found herself in the last year or so. And as you just mentioned, I think that Cassie Lang as Stature will probably replace that character
Hmm.
in that
Like take on
franchise.
that man. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, because I can see I don't know why, I can see Ant-Man probably surviving, but I can see Hank Pym being the one that's probably taken out as far as, again, Hope and
For
Hank Pym probably not making it out of the film, because I think you wanna check in on Paul Rudd. Everyone loves him. I don't think they wanna, and I think he
yeah.
loves his role as well, so I think he can
Hmm.
make it out, and then plus, I mean, let's be honest, we're in the multiverse, so there's probably
Oh
other
yeah.
versions they can pull out,
Exactly.
if they really took out
Exactly.
Ant-Man. It's another version of him that they could bring into the MCU.
But yeah. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Jonathan Majors is going to do
He'll
with this
kill it,
role. Like just with the little bit of lines that he said in the trailer,
man.
it
Mhm.
would just sounded menacing enough. And the thing is, we have only seen him just in little two clips, and you mainly heard him do voiceover.
Right.
And when I don't know if you saw the recent one they came out with called The Legacy of Ant-Man, but
I did.
he had a new
Is
set
there
of
new footage
lines,
in there?
and it wasn't any new footage, but it was a new line. It was a new
Oh,
line. He said like the one of the last lines he told Ant-Man was that he was out of his league.
Which
He,
he ain't lying.
like he said you're out of your league.
Yeah,
So it's like it's no laughing matter. So I already know that when he pops up on that screen,
yeah.
for the first time, and wearing the traditional Kang
Mhm.
attire, people are going to lose their minds
He
at
playing
that
no
mere
game.
presence alone. Like that's going to be a very interesting film, and I can't wait to
Hope so,
see
man.
what's going to happen. I'm just calling and putting it out there into existence,
Yeah.
right now.
And it's funny you bring out Jonathan Majors and just tying him back to his career, I think, and going back to the kind of that the wokeness or white savior. I think of Lovecraft Country, man, which to me
Hmm.
was just like
Oh
pure
yes.
sci-fi action horror with a lot of great social commentary that didn't rely on any of these tropes they're referring to with being woke or being
Mhm.
a white savior. I don't think there was no white
It
saviors at all on
wasn't.
that show.
It
It was all the
wasn't.
black people were doing their own
It
shit,
wasn't.
taking care
Yeah.
of their own business, and we saw what happened with that, right? And
And also,
74.
and also, because I said I didn't think of any shows, but then another show came up, Watchmen.
Yeah. Oh,
Watch,
man.
yeah, Watchmen. Listen, with how they just started that show off, like when they started off with Black Wall Street, I said I can't
Yeah,
believe.
so
I
and
said
it's so
I could
crazy
not
that
believe they
conversation
actually
was like, "Was
showed
that
that.
real? Did that really Yeah, that really
Yeah,
happened.
that
I was
really happened.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
It's crazy. A lot of people don't know that
yeah,
that actually did happen. And I'm actually shocked that they actually showed that on screen.
Mhm,
Because that's something
mhm,
I would have never thought they would have put out there like that, at least in a media type of circuit. So kudos for them
mhm.
for actually doing it. And then they even leaned in on them getting reparations,
Yep.
but they called it something else. I forgot what they called it though.
I forgot it too, but another example of HBO was like, "Oh, well, we gotta go ahead and pull this cord. Only limited series, 1 season, and
And then,
go on
and
about
then
your
on
business."
top of that, they came back and they tried to do the woke thing again when they had Yahya Abdul Mateen be Dr.
Dr.
Manhattan.
Manhattan, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he was upset. Some of them was
Mhm.
upset about that. And Dr. Manhattan is like this supreme, all powerful being, like
Yep.
very intelligent, very smart,
Mhm.
knows pretty much every single thing,
Yep.
and his powers and abilities are fire. I remember watching Watchmen the movie, and remember when he was getting when when multitasking. He made a
Mhm.
clone of himself to be
Wow.
there
Pleasuring.
with
Yeah.
Silver Spectre while he was tending to something else. I always
OP,
laugh at that
OP,
scene right.
man.
I said
Yeah.
I always laugh at that scene right there, and I said there's probably a lot of guys out there that wish they could do that. And also too, when he was getting dressed, like he was just floating there while his
Mhm.
clothes was putting itself onto him while he's just floating, like levitating in the
Yeah,
air. And like
OP.
he's up in another place building a whole nother planet. It's like his powers like was dope. And but to see that
Yeah.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen was in that role,
Mhm.
playing that character. And I like, the dynamic of him and Regina King, or the Sister Knight was her character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being married and having a family
Yep.
and all types of stuff like that, and living nice. Like these were black people that got their reparations, and they're all living nice in this
Mhm.
very nice upscale neighborhood,
Mhm.
while
Must have
all this other stuff is going on and it's
mhm.
crazy.
That
But
show was fire.
yeah, like that was yeah, but I think that was supposed to meant to be a one-off show anyway. Like they said they wasn't
Yeah,
planning
the
on doing
conception of it was, yeah, and I mean, they did leave the door open for those that watched the
for a
season
season
to
two.
open it
Yeah,
up for season
they left it open for it to be a
2.
season two with
And
how,
I mean, it
especially
made
how
all
it
the
ended.
ratings were there. They got the awards, they got the rating. I guess it was just a matter of let's just go
Yeah,
ahead and
it was
end
too
on a
black.
high note. Yes, exactly,
It
exactly. And
was
that
too
same thing with
black.
Misha Green, man. Misha Green, she put out the conception for season 2 of Lovecraft, and it was I think it was well, they split the states up. I can't remember the exact how she did it, but it was gonna be talk about black. It was gonna be as black as hell, man. I can't
Mhm.
remember the conception of it, but it was just like, yeah, we taking over the world pretty much. And HBO and them execs was like, nope, we sorry, Misha, we don't have the funds. We unfortunately can't move on. Matter of fact, Jonathan Majors, he's busy, right? Yeah, so y'all don't even have time to make a season
Mhm.
2. They made up every excuse, but who knows, man? That's a show that I would love to see someone, Apple, Amazon, someone pick up because that
Yeah.
that has so much richness, so much more story to be told.
Did you watch the show Underground?
I've seen 1 or 2 episodes back in there because it was on CW, and at that time I was very like I was so burnt out by CW that I
Wait,
just
yours was on CW?
the Underground. Wait, which Underground are you talking about? Misha
It's
Green's Underground?
no, no, it's called Underground. It was a show about the Underground Railroad, or the
Okay, what am I
starting
thinking?
of it.
Okay,
It used to come on what used to be WGN.
That's what I'm thinking of. The WG. I don't know why I said CW. I know what you're talking about because that was Misha Green, right? She did that as well, right?
I no, I think no, John. I think John Legend and somebody else did that. It was a show
Okay.
with Journey Smollett and Aldous
Right, right, right.
Hodge.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
could have sworn that I thought Misha Green was a part of that. 'Cause that's what I thought her and Journey Smollett. That's what I thought their
yeah.
relationship was.
Now that was a good show, and I
Yeah, I
was
heard.
so
I heard.
mad when they canceled that show because WGN got bought out by the Sinclair company, which has ties to Fox News. So you
Yeah.
know how that is.
Right,
So,
right,
but
right, right.
it was a really good show that really depicted like the origin of the Underground Railroad and like where it was like leading to. And then in the
Mhm,
second season, they introduced the Harriet Tubman character. I forgot the
mhm.
actress who played her, but she played Harriet very well.
Guilty.
And they were getting ready to go into season 3, and I think season 3 was going to talk about one of the wars, like one of
Mhm,
those wars that happened around that time. And then once that happened,
mhm,
they gave the show the axe when they ended up buying the WGN by
mhm.
Sinclair. They got rid of that show. Like they made sure that was one of the first shows to go.
Cut the
And I
cord. What
was
was that,
so
2020
mad
something,
about that
2018?
because Underground was a really, really good show.
Yeah. I heard.
Yeah. But yeah, I pretty much, I think I pretty much got out everything that I needed, for this discussion.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, just wrapping it back to it's a trope that I think Hollywood is very aware of. I think at this
Oh
point
yeah,
it's
oh
almost like a
definitely.
standard. If
Hmm.
it's not in a film, it's almost like, well, what y'all doing here? Y'all, where's the savior? So, again, I don't see it ending anytime soon, and I think, like I said, I think Hollywood is almost like required for some films to have that trope being very integral to the plot.
Oh yeah, even though it doesn't have to be there. It's like you just threw it there, like you just
Yeah.
had it in there because you felt like you had to put it in there, especially even if it wasn't necessary
necessary, right?
whatsoever. And
And
it's
I
like
guess it
like
really it does it I guess too, just kinda get it back to the conception of it all. It's just what is it? A form of familiarity, comfortability for the audience to feel safe, to feel familiar. I think that that's where
mhm.
it kinda boils down to, where if they don't
It
see
almost feels
themselves,
biblical.
yeah, if they don't
It
see
almost feels
themselves
biblical,
yeah.
like when you think of the picture of Jesus Christ, you see
Mhm,
this, this white guy with blue eyes and blonde
mhm,
hair,
mhm.
but the Bible describes him as skin of bronze and hair like wool. That
Yeah.
doesn't look like what I just described. That doesn't sound anything like that.
They
But
someone
like
definitely
it
took
is what it
creative
is.
liberties on that depiction, like,
And,
Let's go ahead and alter this a little bit."
and I noticed, like, before we actually get out of here, you had mentioned something. You had said the word agendas.
Yeah, yeah,
I can honestly say that when we break down the white savior trope, and even for what it is, that is definitely an agenda without
Mm,
the shadow of a doubt. But it's one of those agendas that doesn't get called out
it doesn't
as
get
an
called out.
agenda. It's one
Right.
of those things that it just happens, and you're supposed to just accept it as it
Yeah,
is.
yep, mhm,
That
100%.
is, yeah, I truly believe without the shadow of a doubt that the white savior trope in all of its form is definitely an agenda. And I said, and when I say all of its forms, I'm not just talking about in media, I'm talking about
Right.
in real life
Right, right, right.
as well. Because like I was telling Brandon, think about how you have all these people who are acting as missionaries, especially over in Africa,
Mhm,
and how all these weird stuff be happening, especially with those kids. You be hearing all types of horror stories that they be
mhm.
doing. I don't have to go into detail. You can pretty much, pick apart
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm talking about when that happens.
I mean, even more than that too, with the whole adoption system and that whole system,
Oh yeah, most
bleeds
yeah.
into just like, "Oh, white family? Check." You know? So
Oh, and that happened in season 3 of Atlanta.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like with the family, which was based off of Devontae Hart and
Yep.
his siblings.
3
You
slap.
had
Yep.
the two women adopt these
That's
black
such a
kids,
sad story, yeah.
and it's a very sad story. I mean, in the show, it had a happy ending, but in reality, it was a very sad ending. As a matter of fact, that when I was doing the commentary on that, that was one of the few times where um I actually cried
Mm,
while telling that story because it hit so hard for me
yeah.
because the signs were there, but people responded too late.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's one of those stories that, whenever that time comes around, whenever the anniversary of that story happens, it's like something just comes over me, and it's like it's just wow. Like that
Yeah.
story still plays in my head to this day.
Man. Yeah, man.
But yeah, we about to wrap it up, everybody. I'm glad that y'all were able to tune in. This was part 2 of this discussion. Shout out to Elliot over the movie files for coming through and lending his voice to this conversation. That definitely was very well needed, and it definitely needs to continue to happen. Elliot, go ahead and tell the people where they can find you at.
Yeah, man. Well, again, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm so happy this past year we were able to again make those comments come into reality with collaborating with each other, man. And this is one of many for hopefully next year, because we talked about it off camera, man. There's a lot of stuff to cover next year, and I hopefully
Yeah,
can we can link up again and talk about that stuff. But yeah, guys, you can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, again covering all your new movies, new shows, and breaking them down with different various live streams and whatnot. So check me out there, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all those fine things. But again, man, I appreciate you having me on.
no problem. Definitely. And we will definitely be collabing again because there's a lot. 2023 is a mixed bag of a lot of things. We mentioned earlier how so much stuff is coming out in March. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but definitely, go ahead and do it. I will leave the link to his channel down in the description below so you can go ahead and check out his content. You will very much appreciate everything that he brings to to his platform. Even if you don't watch the shows or the movies or whatever, the commentary is definitely worth it. I'll put it that way. With that being said, we about to head out of here. Y'all enjoy the rest of your evening, the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you all later.